welcome to Big Brother 2016. Tonight is launch night, so we'll be meeting our contestants and answering 7 very important questions. Let's get this show running and meet our first guest. I'm Lucy Clayton, creator and editor of Native magazine. Native is a British music magazine with a particular focus on house and garage style music. It is fairly new on the scene with only 75 issues, but is taking the UK by storm with unique artists, creative photography and inspiring stories.
Dear one in the Big Brother house. Lucy Clayton has just entered and is going straight to the diary room for her first challenge from Big Brother.
Hello Lucy, this is Big Brother.
Hello Big Brother.
Big Brother would like to know more about Native magazine. In what ways does your media product use, develop and challenge forms and conventions of real media products? Perhaps introducing our next contestants will help you out.
NME, New Music Express, is a British music journalism magazine which has been published since 1949. It is mainly associated with indie, rock and alternative music genres. The target market for this magazine is generally based around 16 to 25-year-olds. Mojo is a popular music magazine that was first published in 1993. It publishes monthly in the United Kingdom and has a large age demographic due to the variety of musicians and singers that the genre covers. So yeah, as you can see from those previous contestants, I used, developed and challenged particular conventions from previous magazines. As well as using Mojo and NME, I also used magazines such as Vibe, The Rolling Stone and Till 8. So for my front cover, first of all, I used a convention that I saw on a Vibe magazine where they put the more important features in a brighter colour. So for example, the Who here, which starts the Clayton James story, is an orange, as well as the 20 for the hottest hits of March. I also developed one of the conventions found in a Till 8 magazine. As you can see here, I've used a plus sign to show that there's more stories as well as this Discovery Central one. In this case, it follows by the hottest hits of March. On the Till 8 magazine, the plus sign was very small and barely noticeable. It was also in a yellow colour, where I've made this black and bold so that it stands out on the page. And finally, I decided to challenge some of the conventions I had noticed on previous magazines. As you can see here, the banner is in fact in front of the image, whereas in the majority I had analysed, the banner was behind the photo. I think that the majority of magazines tended to do this so that the image was more prominent and stood out on the page. Whereas personally, I think that the name should be completely noticed, as after all it is what makes your brand have its own identity. I did notice this feature on an NME magazine, although the banner didn't overlap the image as much. Therefore I have challenged this convention as it is in front, and personally I think this looks very effective. So for my contents page, I also used, developed and challenged some of the previous conventions I had noticed on magazines. For example, I used a layout that I had seen on a Q and Mojo magazine. In this case, the writing on the right hand side and the image on the left. I think this is a very effective layout as you can easily distinguish between the writing and the photo, and as it doesn't overlap, it is a lot clearer to read. Furthermore, I developed one of the conventions I noticed on an NME magazine. NME had used a subscription discount code which they placed in the bottom of the page in rather a large proportion. But in my case, I used the same idea but had it as a strip form and placed it right underneath the March 2016 what's inside. It reads, Native subscription, 20% off each issue and a free gift. Sign up at www.nativemagazine.co.uk. I think this is a lot more effective as it doesn't cover the image but is still readable. It also stands out due to the white colour and font that I have chosen. Finally, I challenged some of the conventions I had noticed on previous magazines. As you can see here, I have used 2 Polaroid images on my contents page. Polaroid images are very personal, and also a personal touch is adding the signatures of the artists. I hadn't noticed this on any of the magazines I had analysed, but on NME there was an image that had a large white box around it, which gave it that Polaroid vibe. So I decided to challenge this and turn it into a more personal thing by adding the signatures and the photos. This is my double page spread. For my double page spread, I used the idea that I had noticed on a Vibe magazine. This particular convention was using drop capitals. As you can see, I've used a C and a J for Clayton James. This is very effective and immediately draws the reader's attention due to size. Also, by having the orange colour, I kept in line with the colour scheme and strengthened the brand identity. I also decided to develop some of the conventions I had noticed on previous magazines. As you can see on my double page spread, I have used drop quotes. Drop quotes are very effective as they intrigue the reader and encourage them to read the entire story. On the majority of magazines I had analysed, I noticed that they had used drop quotes as titles. None of them had used them as accompanying features. In my opinion, I think this looks very effective as it makes the page look more of a whole, and instead of just having a title, it accompanies nicely with the image and makes it more striking and stand out. I also challenged one of the conventions I had noticed on a Kerrang magazine. As you can see here, I have placed my image on the right hand side of the page, whereas all the other magazines I had analysed had the image on the left hand side. The Kerrang magazine had the photo on the right, but it overlapped onto this page. In my opinion, I think having the photo on the right hand side of the page is a lot more effective, as if the reader was just to be flicking through, this is the first thing they would notice, and it may encourage them to read the entire story. I have challenged it as I have not overlapped the photo and it stands proud on its own.
How does your media product represent particular social groups? Let's introduce our next guest to give you a helping hand.
Clayton James is the cover artist for Native magazine. He is a 20-year-old male specialising in house and garage music. The young professional has an upsetting life story, but has overcome it to become the person he is today. Clayton is entering the Big Brother house to prove that age, gender, sexuality and background doesn't always matter. My magazine represents many different social groups. With regards to age, the main groups that are represented are those within the 16 to 25 age range. As you can tell from the contestant that you saw previously, Clayton James is a 20-year-old male. I also have acts such as The Treble and Kelly Kings who are a lot younger than this. So in general, my magazine represents everyone. My magazine isn't aimed at any particular social group. With regards to ethnic minority groups, the genre of my magazine can be enjoyed by every single person, as house and garage style music isn't aimed at any particular culture or ethnic background. Native has a very positive attitude towards all sexual proclivities. It can be enjoyed by people of all different sexual orientations, as Native believes love should have no labels. Native is mainly aimed at those who buy and enjoy magazines, so particularly those of the middle classes. There isn't any challenging vocabulary other than a few pieces of jargon that house and garage style music fans should understand anyways. Clayton James's story is all about his difficult past and how he climbed the social ladder, so therefore Native isn't aimed at anyone of a particular status. Although the main story focuses on a male artist, Clayton James, the contents page is dominated by mainly females, Kelly Kings and the Trebles, which therefore balances out any gender bias. In all photos, both males and females look proud, powerful and motivated, which avoids any stereotypes that males are more influential than women.
Big Brother would like to know what kind of media institution might distribute your media product and why. Maybe our next guest will help.
IPC Media is a leading media institution in the UK that distribute magazines such as NME, Look, Ideal Home and The Photographer. Currently, 26 million people in the UK read magazines published by IPC, and they have excellent connections with radio stations and TV channels worldwide. I have decided that I would like IPC Media to distribute my magazine as they are one of the leading media institutions in the UK. Out of all the magazines that I have analysed, I would say that NME magazine has inspired me most, and as IPC Media distribute NME, I think it would be suitable to use this company, as NME has a target audience similar to my own. Currently, 26 million people in the UK read magazines published by IPC Media, so this gives me great confidence that my magazine will be well appreciated. Due to the size of the company, it would be a lot cheaper to advertise my magazine, as the large institution would have connections with radio stations and TV channels where I'd like to promote my magazine. I would distribute it nationally, as the artists and music would be from all over the country, so therefore a large target audience would be interested. I would sell my magazine in large UK supermarkets, such as Tesco and Sainsbury's, as they are soon becoming the largest sellers of magazines in the UK.
Who would be the audience for your media product? Perhaps guest number 6 will help you answer this.
This is Laura Meikle. She is an 18-year-old female with a passion for clubbing and has a taste for house-style music. She is an excellent contestant, as she is the perfect audience member for Native magazine due to her age, gender and interest in music. My target audience would be the age group between 16 to 25 years old. This is because this age group stereotypically listen to house and garage style music and therefore will be more likely to read my magazine. Native is genderless, as it contains stories about male and female artists. Additionally, both genders enjoy the style of music, so no specific sex would read my magazine. People of any sexuality would also be interested, as it is not aimed at a certain sexual orientation. I have tried to make my magazine non-race specific, which means any race can read it. Readers would have to be interested in music, as Native focuses entirely on the subject of music.
Big Brother would like to know, how did you address your audience?
In my planning stage, my target audience wanted a bright, creative and inspiring magazine that focused on house music. I simply interviewed people between the ages of 16 and 25 to find out this information, and got a lot of feedback as to how I could make my magazine as effective as possible. The vivid orange colour immediately draws your attention and keeps the pages exciting. The clever use of mise-en-scène and the location gives my magazine a creative vibe, and the Clayton James story is very inspiring. The feedback at my rough cut stage really helped me to produce an effective finished product. By retaking my photos, the images are of a higher quality, have more relevance and are generally more visually pleasing. Furthermore, I introduced an entire colour scheme after receiving my feedback, which has made it more eye-catching. I got feedback from my target audience throughout the entirety of my magazine creation. This was mainly through the interview and questionnaire process. My images attract my target audience because they contain both genders and represent males and females as positive and successful people. The style of shots and choice of angles are also very unique. There is minimal complex language other than a few examples of music jargon, which the majority of music fans would understand anyways. I made my article interview style, as this was more attractive to younger audiences, as huge amounts of text may be seen as intimidating. Overall, if you buy a Native magazine, it will make you feel visually enlightened and even more music obsessed.
What have you learnt about technologies from the process of constructing this product?
Alongside my music magazine, I also had to produce a blog on the Blogger site. Here, I did most of my previous magazine research and discussed the different stages of my magazine. My blog had its own specific brand identity that was very personal to me. With regards to taking my photos, I used a Nikon D5-100 camera. I took the majority of my images on the auto setting after altering the aperture, shutter speed and exposure settings to suit the lighting and location of the area. I used natural lighting for all of my images alongside the flash when I was in a dark location. I didn't take any images in studio, so none of my photos contain artificial lighting. I used a variety of different shots and angles to make my photography as creative as possible. The most common was the medium close-up, as this looks very effective on a front cover. My favourite image is that of the treble, which is displayed on my contents page, as the females are all in different positions. It is bright, it is colourful, and it is taken in a very unique location. I used the rule of thirds on my front cover and my double page spread images to ensure that the most important features were on display and had the reader's focus. I used Adobe Photoshop to enhance and manipulate my images. The most common features I used were the brightness, contrast and level bars within the essentials sections. The spot healing tool was also very handy, as well as the magic wand when I had to remove the background of photos. I put together my magazine on Adobe InDesign, where I learned some very creative techniques, such as altering the spacing between text and changing the interior and outline colours of certain fonts. I have used Adobe Encoder and Premiere Pro to convert this footage into a short film and edit over text, images and soundtracks.
Finally, Big Brother would like to know, looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learnt in the progression from it to the full product? Guest number 7 should help.
Just Bear Yes is the school magazine that Lucy Clayton, creator of Native magazine, made for her preliminary task. Compared to Native, Just Bear Yes is unprofessional, boring and doesn't follow the conventions of any popular music magazines. In contrary to the creative, unique Native magazine, Just Bear Yes has a dull colour scheme, ineffective array of images and a peculiar layout. Lucy Clayton has therefore learnt how to make her images more effective, layout more stylish and in general follow the conventions of existing media products.
Lucy Clayton has decided to ask some of her housemates what they think of their finished product and to take a look back at the rough cut stage of the magazine.
As you can see on the rough cut, it's very dull and a bit boring with not much colour except on the shirt. The image is a bit poorly edited and it's just not very interesting to look at. But the new image is much more bright and colourful. The image is really high quality and well edited. I love the colours and the contrast between the orange and the green, and it's just, I think it's a really interesting, good front cover. As you can see on the rough cut of the contents page, again the colour scheme is very dull. The image is lacklustre. Even though this one is very high quality, it's not got much about it. The layout is a bit boring and the writing's quite hard to read, whereas on the proper contents page it's like extremely bright and colourful and interesting. I love the layout of this with the image next to it, and it's just really nice and colourful. For the rough cut of the double page spread, this one has more colour, but it's still a bit dull. The colour scheme is throughout on the page, but it's again a bit boring and lacks lustre. This image in the corner, although high quality, it's a bit boring and it looks like out of place almost. I love the clock, but I think it could be more interesting, maybe in the middle or something. For the real double page spread, it's much more interesting. It's got a lot more colour. I love the CJ behind the text. This image, it's a different image, but it's a bit slanted and it's got a border around, which has made a massive improvement, and this image is just very high quality.
That's all we have time for today on this episode of Big Brother Magazine Edition. See you next time.